Hi, Chaperarians. Guys, you might be wondering that I have made use of the context, okay, and removed the props here in the case of main header. But why I have not removed this props and why not use this context in login component and the home component? So the reason is I told you that context, we use context when there is the problem of props chaining. Okay, that thing is not happening here. If you will go to the login component, you will see that the data that I'm passing this login handler with the help of onLogin attribute. So this function I'm executing here, I'm using it here in line number 73. You can see that. So that's why I have not removed it. Okay. Whereas in the case of main header, the data that I was passing, okay, it was not used here. It was used in navigation component. So that's why I made use of context and remove those props from the main header. This is not the case in the case of login because I'm using the data that I pass with the help of props here. Similarly, in the case of home component, I'm using this logout handler. Uh, okay. By the way, guys, I plan to use the custom button component that I created here, and I forgot to integrate it. No problem, I can integrate it now. Logout, and here I can have an on-click prop, which I'm receiving from the props, and here I'm expecting on logout. Okay, on logout is what I have passed down, and that I'm using here inside this home component. So since this props are directly used, okay, inside this home and login, I'm not using context here. So basically, after this change, let me just show you how the welcome page looks. It will have an additional logout button which was missing. So I log in. Now I have this logout button. So I can log out from this button click as well. By the way, that was not the agenda of this lecture. In this lecture, I just wanted to tell you a important pattern of writing code in your React applications. And see, we are done with the all those things that you need to know about the React context and the use context hook. I have already told you, and you can use it very easily now in your applications. But there is one particular pattern of coding, a practice that is followed in while developing your React applications that I want to tell you because this practice is something that you will see often in your real world projects when you will start working somewhere. You will see such a coding pattern being used in your applications in your organization. So this is something that I wanted to tell you, and that is for that I will just bring your attention to this app component. Have a look here, guys. This app components, okay, other than rendering this thing, okay, everything else is related to authorization in this app component. This state that I'm maintaining, the logged in state that I'm maintaining, and then this login handler, logout handler, everything has to do with authorization. Similarly, the context that I've created inside the app component, okay, that has also to do with the authorization. So what I intend to say is you have this component, app component, where I'm having the authorization state, which I'm maintaining to check the login status and handle the login and logout behavior. And I also have the authorization context defined for this, used in this component. So can I have a central place where I basically combined this authorization state that I'm maintaining and the authorization context that I'm setting? Can I have a central place so that, instead of writing this entire code here in that component, I will write this thing at that central place that will also have the logic for this state management for the login state, and it will also have the this logic for the context for the authorization, so that my app component will not have to do all these things. It will just render this thing onto the DOM. Okay, this will make my component cleaner, and I will have a separate, a clearly defined and a focused place where I have my authorization logic, which has the state management for the authorization as well as the context for the authorization. And React help us do that. Okay, React allows us to do that. That central place is what you can create with the help of custom um, custom provider, custom context provider. So right now, what you are doing, see, I am using the authorization context, okay, and then using that object, I am creating a component here, authorization context component. But this provider is provided to us, is given to us by the React. Okay, what I can do is I can create my own provider. Okay, now that provider will have the logic of the context as well as the state for authorization. And then what I will do, instead of having all this logic here, I will have that logic in that authorization provider that I will create. And in my index.js, I can basically wrap the entire application, okay, the entire application inside that custom context provider that I will create. So what this will do, since all other components in this application are child of app component only, all the other components flow from the app component. So this context, authorization context, and since this is required everywhere, it is required in the login component, it is required in the home component, it is required in the navigation component. Since this login status is needed everywhere, what I can do is I can create a central place which I plan to create with the help of a custom context provider that I will that React allows us to do. And from there, I will use that context to enclose my app so that all the child have access to that. And now there is no need of props whenever it comes to the uh, authorization logic. I can directly fetch the data, the values from the authorization context, that central place. So this is one design pattern that you will often see in your real world applications. So now let us see how we can implement this. Okay. So what I planned is, uh, if you will see carefully in my app component, I'm having is logged in. Okay. I'm having is login. Okay, which I'm using here is login. I'm using it in navigation as well. I'm using it here also in the app component is logged in. I'm using on logout. So these two I have already defined in my authorization context, but I'm also having on login. And now since I want to wrap the entire app component with the custom context provider that I plan to create, I should have this field as well in my authorization context object. So let us have it, and again let us give it a default value on login, and default value will be an empty object, but we will make sure that whenever this on login, so if you will go to the login component, you can clearly see that this function is on login function is expecting two values, one is email and other is the password. So let us just make this clear to the React that it will expect two arguments, email and password. You can call it anything, you can even call it E and P. I will call it email and password, but this is an empty function. So this is just a default object that you created, but this is not much. Okay, now I will create that custom provider component. Right now, React is giving me this provider component. Okay, now I plan to create my own custom provider component. So let us do that. I will do it below this authorization context object that I have created. What I can do is I can say auth context provider. Okay, and this is a component, so it will have a props object and it will return something. Now, guys, pay attention. It will return. So I will have my auth uh, auth context provider here. I don't need to import it because I have it above only in the same file. So auth context provider here, and what I can do is whatever I will enclose. I mean, whatever I will have in between my auth context provider that I'm having. So basically what I plan to do is, in my app component, I plan to, not app, in my index.js, I plan to wrap this app component with the custom context provider that I'm creating. So whatever will lie inside between the opening and closing tag of that will be the its children. So basically app will be its children. So I will render this app here. Okay. via with the help of props. I need to use a single pair of curly brackets and props dot children. Okay. So with that, I am done. Okay. I have made use of this provided component provided to us by the React, but then I have created my own custom context provider using that. Now, what is the advantage of this? The advantage of this, I can not only maintain a context here, I can even maintain states here. So for that purpose, what I will do, I will simply extract this logic from here, which is the authorization logic, the authorization state management. I will extract it from the app component and I will have it in this authorization context provider. Now, obviously for that, I will need to import use effect here. So let us do that. Use effect. And I have my login handler. I have my logout handler. This is done. Now, this should have some values. Okay. So the value attribute now will have three things as we have already seen in, let us now right now just copy this. It will have three things. Is logged in. This thing will basically be the state that we are having here. We have defined here. So let us write that here. Is logged in. Is logged in. This will be the log out handler. Yeah, this will be the logout handler, and this will be our login handler. Login handler. So with that, I no longer need. I'm using use state also, so I need to import that as well. Just a second, guys. Use state. Okay, this is done. So with that, I have created my context provider, and once I have done that, I can now obviously get rid of this. I can get rid of this as well. And now since I'm not having the root component, I should use React fragment here. Yeah, I should use it React fragment here. So with that, all these things are out. Now I no more require this use effect and use state hooks here. And I also don't need authorization context here. And now what I can do is, I am obviously seeing these things as errors, obviously, because now I plan to get these values from the context that I have just created. So to use that context, okay, I first need to export this component that I have created as a named export. So I will export it. Okay. Auth context will be still be my default export, but my named export would be auth context provider so that I can import it. So I will go to my index.js and I will simply import it here. Import auth context provider from store auth context. And then what I can do is I can basically wrap my app with this auth context provider. And if I do that, I'm sorted. Okay. Now this with the help of this context provider that I've created, I'm managing the state and I'm also managing the context. And I have these three values inside the context. And I have used this context provider to enclose my app component so that all these states related to authorization and all this context is available to all the other components that are child of the app component. So this is the advantage. And now let us see that advantage in action. Now I can make use of the use context hook. Okay. And here, instead of, I can make use of use context and obviously I will need to import uh, auth context here now. Okay. I will pass it down auth context, and here uh, I can simply store this inside a variable, let us say cityx, and say use context or context. And now I can, here I can simply say ctx dot is logged in, which is already there, and ctx dot is logged in. And now there's no need for me to pass this props now to the login and to the home component. There's no need for this because now in this inside this components, what I can do is I can simply go to this login component, and wherever I'm using props dot on login, there I can simply replace it with ctx. But again, for that I need to use context here. Let us do that. Use context, and yeah, I need to import the auth context. Now let me call use context here. Let us do it here, and I will just give it some different name so that it becomes clear to you that you can give it any name. You use context, and auth context is what I want here. And now the place where I'm using props dot on login, I can simply say uh, auth cityx dot, and now you can see guys, even my ID is suggesting me this value. On logout, on login is logged in. Okay, so that means these fields are available. Cityx, so this also I'm getting from the context. Okay, so props are not needed here now. I can get rid of props here as well. Okay, uh, I did not pass it down to login. I did not pass it down to home as well. Okay, so let us do the same thing in the home component. If I go to the home component, let us import the authorization context, and let us import the use context hook. Let us extract that auth context object. Use context auth context, and now where I'm using props dot on logout, instead of using props, I can directly get this data from the context object. So auth context dot on logout is available here. So I can get it here. Let me check the spelling. Yeah, it is correct. So again, I can get rid of the props here. And with that, if I just save my application, I go to my application interface, I provide some data, some password, button is enabled, I'm able to log in, I'm able to log out on click of this button. Again, test it. Let us test this once again. Let us provide a password. I'm able to log in. Now let us try to log out with this button, and I'm able to log out. So that means uh, we were successful in implementing the central place where I'm managing my state as well as the context for authorization. And this is a standard practice that you will often see in your real world applications. I've repeated this many times. I just wanted to show you this pattern of writing your applications, and that is why I have done this. The advantage is my individual components are only doing the things that they are required to do. Okay, app component is just rendering what it is expected to render. It is not having the authorization logic. Similarly, home component is doing its thing, login component is doing its own thing. Okay, and the logic for the authorization, I have clubbed it into this authorization context provider, and to make this state and the context available to all the components, I have simply rendered it uh, around the app component, so that all the childs of app component has access to those states and contexts. So this is how you can create a custom context provider, and this is the advantage it provides you, that one component is doing only one thing at a time. Your app component is not busy with the authorization logic, and obviously it helps you prevent the problem of drop sharing. So that was all about this topic, guys, and let us meet in the next one. Thank you.